Hello. It's your girl Lay. And it's been a few days. First, welcome back to my channel. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you enjoy the content. And I know it's been a few days in between my videos, and that's because for whatever reason, the videos about my trucking accident has taken like 3 and 4 days to upload at a time. Like, it's crazy. I go on every day to check the status of it and it's just taking forever for whatever reason. So I'm actually going to see now that I'm pretty much, it was only 2 parts to that. So now I'm just trying to figure out while I'm home and going to the doctor and I'm waiting for physical therapy and I have all these different checkups and I'm home at the moment, just recovering from the mental, emotional, and some still pain that I'm having from the accident, trying to figure out like, okay, what else do I, want to do? Because I don't want to lose my momentum. Like literally right before the accident, I had just got my momentum of making content and, just learning the ropes and learning the algorithm and, just being consistent and all that. So I'm like, dang, like, what am I going to do now? Because my mind is very structured. Like once I start doing something a certain way, I kind of like it to stay that way, So now with all this free time, I'm like, like how often am I gonna post? Now what am I gonna talk about? Like, I'm not talking about trucking no more, and my actual 2-year plan videos and just all the other stuff that I was talking about, which was all over the place, just wasn't getting the same views. So I'm like, dang, what exactly am I gonna talk about now? But it literally just hit me today because since I'm home now, I've been reading, right? And I started this book yesterday and it's called Don't Believe Everything You Think. Woo, if you are anything like me or you are an overthinker, this book is intense. So much so that I was like, I want to do a book review on this book. I want other people to read it and let's talk about it in the comments if you will, because man, like I'm telling everybody, I had to call my little sister last night and tell her like, yo, I said, look, I don't want it to take you 33 years to get this concept, because honestly, this concept has put me in a lot of different situations that I could have saved myself from if I knew this information. So I called my 14-year-old sister last night and told her about this book. It's this book I'm reading, and this is what I learned that I think all of us could use, right? So one of my goals that I have actually on my quarterly goals is to read more books. My goal is to read 1 book per month for this whole year, because I've always, for years now, I've been thinking about how I want to read. But it's like, unless you are just, enjoy reading, or you grew up a nerd, or you grew up just really quirky, and it's something that you just naturally gravitate to, it's not nothing you could just start doing. Like, I have tons of books in my closet, and I've opened some of them and started, and that was it. I just started, never finished, never got all the way through, never nothing. But I keep writing it down almost every year when it comes to my goals, my vision. Like, yo, I want to be a reader. I want to read more books. I want to, Like, I just want to have that. I just want to continue to sharpen my brain and sharpen, the tools as I'm growing and evolving through life as a Black woman, So I started this book, and this is my 2nd book of the year. I'm trying to, while I'm home, this one, as you can see, I'm more than halfway done. It's only 120 pages. So if you're interested, I would say this is a mental health book. That's what I would call this book. And I think that's why I'm so interested in it, because with my journey, I'm really big on I'm trying to work on my emotional regulation, trying to work on my self-awareness. And and self-reflection, like how I'm trying to work on as a woman, having accountability. Like I have accountability, but there's still some things that I don't see about myself, or I don't understand where those parts come from, so I can kind of get to the root of them and get over it. Because when I think about it after reading this book, a lot of those things have stopped me in my tracks, or a lot of those things are very much centered around fear and anxiety and overthinking, which don't believe everything you think. I don't remember, I bought this book some time ago because anytime I watch any type of podcast or any type of anything, if they recommend books, first of all, if I'm watching your podcast, you know what I mean? Like, I like something about your personality, the way you carry yourself, the way you think, whatever, right? So anybody who I watch, when they recommend books, I buy them, right? So I bought this book a while ago. I don't even remember who recommended this book, but I was like, that title sounds interesting. And now that I'm sitting home, I was like, yo, I'm about to read this. Like, what's my next book I'm going to read? Because I'm already behind. I'm in March, and this will be my second book. So I'm trying to finish this book out. I want to say by tonight or tomorrow I'll be done, so I can start my third one. And for April, I'll be on book 4, and I could just go from there and get on my pace of 1 book per month. But really, as good as these books are, and they're aligning with my journey, to be honest, come next year, or maybe in the next few months, or maybe like the last 3 months, I could probably fit in 2 books per year. 2 books per month. And that'll really be fire, honestly. Like, and that'll be just a totally just shift and transition of who I really am for real, you know, because I don't know, I just don't, I'm not a reader for real. Like, I'm like a skimmer. Like, even when it comes to directions and stuff, I was just fixing something in my bathroom and I needed to read the directions and I didn't, and I messed it up. And then my roommate came in and she read it. She's like, oh, this is what I was like, one day I'm going to learn to read. Like, reading is fundamental. Like, there's a reason. There's a reason that you have to read, right? Like, it gives you directions. Literally, this book has given me direction. I'm like, what? That's what I had to tell my sister. I was like, girl. And I'm talking to her about reading. I'm like, girl, I don't care what you read. Just exercise that muscle, exercise that brain muscle of you continuing to learn, you continuing to discover, you continuing to learn. Like, don't ever stop learning. Don't think just because you're not at school that you shouldn't be learning. This summer, I'm trying to figure out what she could be doing to just keep her mind active, right? But sorry for that rant. So let's get into the review, the first half of the book. So, don't believe everything you think. While you're thinking is the beginning and end of suffering, by Joseph, and I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but it's Nguyen. Nguyen. I don't know. Joseph Nguyen. Don't believe everything you think, just in case you want to get it for yourself. And like I said, it's only 120 pages. Quick read. You can literally get it done in about 2-3 days. You can read 60 pages a day. You can read 40 pages a day. You can read 30 pages a day. You can literally get this done within a week, and it'll really shift your perspective, right? So, first thing I want to get into is chapter 3, y'all. Thoughts versus thinking. I was like, I love a new chapter, because I love, like, actually too, at the beginning of all the chapters, he has a quote, and I love quotes. Oh my God, I love quotes. He has a quote at the beginning of each chapter. So for chapter 3, okay, here going right here, chapter 2, the root cause of all suffering. The quote to start the chapter is, one who looks around him is intelligent. One who looks within himself is wise. And the quote is quoted by Meshona Daliwayo. Not sure, but that's a good quote. One who looks around him is intelligent, right? If you learn from your experiences, okay, that's smart. You're looking at other people and you're learning from others. So, you don't have to go actually run into the wall for you to know that there's a wall right there. You're not going to get through it. You can see other people run into that wall and say, okay, let me figure out another way. That's smart. But one who looks within himself is wise. When you can look at yourself and correct your mistakes, when you can look at yourself and learn from your mistakes, when you can look at yourself and take that accountability that I was speaking of, like, that's wise. When you know that you can't change nobody else, you're only responsible for you. You can only change yourself, and then you'll begin to see the changes around you, right? So that's what I took from that quote. But chapter 3 of thoughts versus thinking, right? we gotta go here because it's not even chapter 3. It must be chapter 4 then, because there's the chart. Where's the chapter? And these chapters are really short. Like, look, chapter 3 is just this part right here. Boom, boom. I love this book, especially when you're just starting to get into reading. Short chapters are perfect because let's say my goal is, okay, I'll just do one chapter a day. These chapters are so short. The first day I read like 47 pages because the chapters are so short and it's so good. I was like, no, I want more. And then the chapters are so appealing. Like that one was, what is the root cause? Chapter 2 was, what is the root cause of our suffering? Chapter 3 is, why do we even think? Chapter 4 is thoughts versus thinking. Like, what's the difference, right? And the quote that he has under chapter 4, thoughts versus thinking, is stop thinking and end your problems. So imagine that, like, stop thinking and end your problems. Imagine how excited I was to read this, because I'm like, what do you mean? Like, first the book is called Don't Believe Everything You Think. Like, that's interesting. Like, what do you mean by that? Like, how do I not believe my own thoughts? Like, how does that work, right? So, I'm going to read I'm gonna just read the beginning part, and then I'm gonna summarize the chapter, and then I'm gonna get into a few other parts, because this will probably be a 2-part thing, because like I said, I'm a little bit more than halfway. It's 120 pages. I'm actually on page 70 in chapter 12, right? So I'm gonna just read the first paragraph, just like the intro. Thoughts are the energetic, mental raw materials from which we use to create everything in the world. We can't experience anything without thought. It's important to know that thoughts are a noun and aren't something that we do, but something we have. A thought takes no effort or force on our end and is something that just happens. We also cannot control what thoughts pop into our minds. The source of thoughts come from something that is beyond our minds, the universe, if you will. That alone explains why don't believe everything you think, right? Right here it says, a thought takes no effort or force on our end. It is something that just happens. We also cannot control what thoughts pop into our minds. The source of our thoughts come from something that is beyond our minds. So when you think about that, right? And honestly, when I read that, that made so much sense. That made so much sense to my personal life and my personal experiences, because when I think about different times, like one of the things that I'm working on right now on my journey is running, right? Like, I am a runner, I am a track star. Like, if I get scared, if I start getting anxious, or if I don't have any understanding or something, I'm out of there. I've been like that since I was a kid. I moved back and forth between my mom and my dad a few times before my dad had to sit me down and say, look, Malaysia, we can't keep doing this, okay? We can work this out. We can sit down and talk. We can figure it out, but you can't keep running back and forth, okay? Like, it's not helping you. You having the same problems here that you was having there. You have the same problems there that you was having here. You know what I mean? Like, you have to sit and get through things and stop running from them. And I was like, okay. And sure enough, those were my high school years. I was my dad from 14 to 19, like just straight. And we really worked out our problems. And we was able to do that because he sat me down and let me know, like, yo, I'm here. Whatever we go through, we can get through. And I believed him. And as things started to happen, we got through them. We worked them out. We sat down at the kitchen table and we talked. He told me, Malaysia, this is what you did wrong. This is how I feel about what you did wrong. This is the punishment for what you did wrong. This is how long you're gonna be in trouble. And then after that, we would literally move on. Like, it wouldn't linger in the air. It would, you know what I mean? Like, he'd just explain what happened, what was about to happen next, and how we're gonna move forward. And then we would literally move forward. And, you know, that's how my years were from 14 to 19. Now, when I got on my own and I started having relationships and friendships and different things like that, that was no longer my experience, right? You had, like, I ran into moments where people, like, have you ever talked to somebody about something and they don't take no accountability, they project, you know, their pain or whatever on you, or they'll flip the script, make it seem like it was your fault, you know what I mean? Like, me personally, I can't handle conversations like that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you're wrong, let's just, you know, let's get to the bottom of that and let's talk about how we're gonna move forward and what we're gonna do differently, and let's talk about some boundaries. Let's find a common ground that'll work for the both of us, because it's not about me just being satisfied in this situation or you just being satisfied in the situation. How could we both come together and be satisfied? And then, you know, like, let's move forward. Like, I always just want a common ground. So I found that a lot of people don't operate like that. Most people are toxic. Most people lack accountability. Most people don't like being the bad guy. Most people don't, all they know is to be the victim, right? So what I got from this particular chapter, or really just this book in general, because as you go through the chapters, he starts to break down even more parts that to do. Like, let's go do chapter 5. Chapter 5 is, if we can only feel what we're thinking, don't we need to think positive? No, that's not the one. Hold on, that's not it either. It's one where I swear I was thinking that. Here we go, chapter 8. How can we possibly thrive in the world without thinking? Because in this thoughts versus thinking chapter, he basically tells you that peace, joy, love, and light is our default setting, right? And thinking is what takes us away from that, right? Which takes us away, thinking is what gives us fear, anxiety, depression, and all that, right? Because it's like when you're trying to, let's say when I was trying to start this YouTube channel, right? I thought it was a good idea. The thought came to me, and you know, I enjoy taking in content. I enjoy making content. Like, I've done all type of things. When Snapchat was out, I used to do little funny little skits or tell little funny stories on Snapchat, and people used to always tell me like, yo, this is funny, this is cool. So you know, it's something I really enjoy doing. But when I wanted to make a channel, when I started to think about it, I was like, people in the comments, and what am I gonna talk about, and who's gonna watch me, and you know what I mean? I just started thinking about all these different things. So he was explaining how that the thought came from joy, the joy that I have in making content, and just with content, period. Making content, watching it, all that. The joy, the love, the happiness that it brings me. And then the thinking about it, like, once I started to think about it, it immediately brought me anxiety, or it brought me doubt. It brought dang, nah, maybe that's not the greatest idea, or, you know, maybe, you know, maybe I shouldn't do that, you know? So he was saying how thoughts come from two different places, right? Thoughts come from inspiration or desperation. And depending on the type of thought that you have to decipher which one to let pass and which one to actually act on. So how you know inspiration from desperation is inspiration feels good. It feels light. It feels effortless. It feels, you know what I mean? Like now that I've gotten into the making content thing, now even though I'm not on a truck no more, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna find something else to do. I've been reading. I did my whole room. That white desk that I had in my other videos, I put that in my room so I could write and journal in the morning and do all that for my healing. Also put a reading corner on the other side of my room, and that's where I'll read at. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start reading since I'm off work, and I've been trying to figure out what exactly are you gonna talk about now that you're not on a truck no more. What new content can you give? What new idea can you give? And this book was like, what if you did a book review? Like, what if you, and I'm like, that's different. Like, I haven't seen that before, but really, I'm attracted to all kinds of content. Today I was watching, I want to say this guy, he looks Indian to me. I don't know, I'm not the best at my racist. I really don't even bother with it, but he looks Indian to me. And his content is literally, he had a chalkboard behind him, and he's standing in front of the chalkboard, and he was basically talking about shadow work, which is my next level of healing for me, is my shadow work, me actually addressing, you know, the things about me that are dark and that I keep hidden, right? And I watched 3 of his videos today, and they all were like over 30 minutes because I was just so like, oh wow. So today or yesterday, after getting more than half of this book read, I was like, that's one of the things you could do. And I might do all type of things while I'm off work, because I don't even know how long I'm going to be off. I'm still waiting for physical therapy. I have a follow-up appointment on Wednesday. Like, you know, I don't know when they're going to release me and I'm going to be able to get back on the truck and go back to work. So in the meantime, in between time, I'm trying to figure out what to do with my free time, right? And how to still be consistent and make content, right? So he was saying how thoughts come from inspiration or desperation. And also he breaks down, which is very important. Oh my goodness, very important. Really, like, just helped me out tremendously when he said this. He explained how our brain, and listen, I'm gonna tie this with something else that I know a lot of us struggle with, especially when it comes to relationships, and maybe even like, not only with our partners, but with like parents and different things like that, right? He explained how our brain is designed to protect us, right? And our brain has a subconscious that stores everything that we've ever been through, right? Everything we've been through, and also everything that we expose ourselves to, whether it's social media, whether it's music, whether it's our environment. Our subconscious stores everything. So the subconscious, that's where all our thoughts come from, right? All our thoughts is coming from the subconscious that is telling our brain to protect us. So when you find yourself in situations, like me, for example, when I'm in situations and my mind tells me to run, like that's literally never been me. Like I said, I'm the type of person, when I was between 14 and 19, when I lived with my dad, I learned how to sit at the table and make things right. Let's talk it out. Let's fix it. Let's, you know, find a common ground and let's move on. Like, that's me. But my brain that's trying to protect me based off of things I went through before I was 14 tells me to run, to hide. Nobody's gonna listen. Nobody's gonna care. You know what I mean? Nobody's gonna take accountability. Nobody's gonna, you know what I mean? So I flee, you know? But a lot of times, that thought of you should flee, I would do it because I'm like, I mean, that's what my mind is telling me to do. And then I would start thinking about it like, yeah, you're right. Like the last person never thought, never listened. The last person didn't take accountability. The last person didn't love me like I wanted them to love me. So I would leave. Later on, I would think about it and be like, that wasn't that serious for me to leave. Like, why did I do that? And I would have to go back. Every friend I have, every relationship that I have, now that I think about it, and now that I'm way more aware and in a better space in my mind and in my heart, every person who's had an encounter with me has experienced me leaving them. They have experienced me walking away from our situation, whether it's a friendship or relationship. Everyone has that story about me. One thing Malaysia's gonna do is she's gonna run. She's gonna run. I'm not gonna cuss you out. I'm not gonna fight you. I'm not gonna disrespect you. I'm not gonna, leave you hanging or do you dirty or do you wrong. But I am gonna leave. And then I'm gonna come back in a few months, or really this last situation I was just in, it took me 4 years to turn back. It took me 4 years. And the only reason that took me 4 years is because I started to notice that was something that I did, that I would leave for a few months and then I would just pop back up. Like, and honestly, every friend I've ever had has welcomed me back with open arms because like I said, I don't say things that I don't mean. I'm not gonna do you dirty. I'm not gonna betray you. I'm not gonna stab you back. I'm not gonna do none of that. I'm just gonna walk away. I'm just gonna flee, leave, disappear, run away, not continue to be in that same space with you. I'm just out, right? So people have always let me come back. But what I found and learned, like maybe within the last few years, that nobody liked that about me. They hated that. They was like, Malaysia, I would have loved to fix it. Like you were worth me fixing that. Our friendship was worth whatever you needed from me. And I was like, really? Like I could have just told you how I felt. After a while, it got to a point that when I would have certain conversations, or really, not even when I would have certain conversations. If I have started a conversation with you and I'm not being understood, or you just can't see where I'm coming from, because a lot of times, as far as I'm concerned, people tell me the dumbest, most irrelevant, are you serious stuff in the world. But my love and my respect for the situation, I validate whatever it is that they say. I change whatever it is that they say because it's not that serious. I will not let nothing that small ruin, you know what I mean? Because some things can just change a situation forever. And for me, like, I don't like change for real. But I'm learning that change is good. Like sometimes an event does need to happen and you do need to see a different side of a person, and it might change the dynamics of y'all situation. It might change it for the better. It's not necessarily the worst. It might change it for the better. So if you avoid change all across the board, you're not gonna get the better side of change. So that thought versus thinking was important because those thoughts I was getting was there to protect me. I didn't have the tools, or I didn't have the understanding or the knowledge that I just got from this book, that those thoughts, I have to sort through them with the conscious part of my brain. That's where the consciousness comes from. So you got a subconscious, you got a conscious, and then there's an unconscious part of you too, where you just in the dark, you just don't know, you know what I mean? You just not aware, whatever. Like, so the conscious part has to cipher through these thoughts that are telling me, run, flee. They're not gonna hold themselves accountable. They're not gonna care. They're not gonna hear you out. They don't love you. They don't, you know what I mean? And it's like, some of the people, after I thought about, I'm like, Malaysia, that's not even true. They do love you. They have shown you that they care. Like, how did you believe that and run with that. Like, wow. And I've had to look at myself because a lot of times I've walked around in my friendships and relationships, and I felt like that I had never done nothing to nobody. Like, everyone just does different things to me because I have been betrayed, or I have been lied to, I have been, stabbed in the back or whatever. You know what I mean? And me, I was like, I don't do that to you guys. Like, what? Like, oh my God, like, how are you guys doing this to me? But what I was doing, running and fleeing and not, having the hard conversations, was just as damaging. Was just as damaging as what of what they did to me. Just as, like, and as we know, two wrongs don't make a right. So, like I said, the thoughts versus the thinking. The thoughts come from your brain, which comes from the subconscious that is designed to protect you, and also comes from either inspiration or desperation when it comes to, like, so what he was saying was, hold on, because I took notes because I'm kind of all over the place. So what he was saying was the inspiration versus desperation thoughts come from or comes into effect like when you're setting goals and things like that. Like when you're setting goals and you're trying to get things done. And how you know the difference is how it feels. If it feels light and it feels peaceful and it brings you happiness, versus if it brings you anxiety and it brings you fear and it brings you doubt and it brings you to different things like that. So, like, it's important. Now, this is why I want to do this review right here. It's important that you understand how your mind is working, so you're able to regulate yourself in real time. When things are going on, you have to be able to emotionally regulate yourself. You have to be willing to, when you get upset, like, you gotta know not to lash out, go crazy, start breaking everything, start tripping. You know what I mean? Like, you have to know, like, you have to have control. You have to have self-control. You have to be able to conduct yourself in different settings. There's a different person you have to be in a different way. You have to talk and handle situations at work versus at home. In public versus in private. You know what I mean? In business versus in personal. There's a certain, you know what I mean? You have to conduct and present yourself in certain ways. So the understanding of your brain and these different parts of it, which are the subconscious, the conscious, and the unconscious, and the thoughts versus the thinking, and how the thoughts come from this place, and then thinking causes you to overthink, and you know what I mean? Like, causes fear and anxiety and doubt. Like, it's important for you to understand that. So as you're going through life, you know what you're up against and you know what's happening for real. Hopefully that makes sense. And stay with me, because I got one more thing to say, and then it'll be a part 2, because I'm looking at the clock and it's getting kind of long. The last thing is, just to put it all together, is that peace, joy, and love, when you feel those feelings, that equals flow. That means things are just flowing. And anxiety, stress, and sadness means that you're at a standstill. And it means that you're overthinking, and you know what I mean? Like, you have to reel it back in. And once you understand, when you can identify those different emotions and what's going on, and you know what it means, you can stop yourself and change the trajectory. If you are feeling anxious, stress, and sadness because you're overthinking and whatever, you can identify that and stop. And then switch it to peace, joy, and happiness, or find that peace, joy, and happiness, which equals flow. So, I'm gonna end it there, and I'm gonna pick back up with the peace, joy, and love equaling flow, and the anger, anxiety, stress, and sadness keeping you at a standstill. Thank you for watching. Please grab the book if you haven't. If you've read it, please leave your thoughts and, how you enjoyed it in the comments. If you're going to get it, leave that in the comments. And if when you start reading it, leave what you think in the comments, because I am so excited about this book. Like, I really, really enjoyed this book, and I hope you do too. Thank you again for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.